The Russia-Ukraine war, the most fantastical realist drama of the 21st century, is becoming more and more unpredictable. The West is stepping up its game. Biden has generously lifted restrictions, allowing Ukraine to strike Russian territory. France is eager to join the fray, aiming to form an international legion to assist. It seems even Chinese companies have sensed the changing tides and are withdrawing from Russia. The most ironic twist is that the usually arrogant Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov is now humbly begging China to mediate. All signs indicate that tables are about to turn. The latest battle developments are full of twists and turns. In early May, Russian forces launched a fierce assault on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, initially gaining some ground. However, just a week later, with continuous Western military aid, Ukrainian forces counterattacked with unstoppable momentum, and the Russians found themselves in a tough battle in Kharkiv. What infuriated Putin even more was that the West directly loosened restrictions, allowing Ukraine to use the aid weapons to strike targets within Russia. The Russian military's performance over the past 6 months has been nothing short of spectacular. This force, touted as the most powerful invasion force since World War II, has been consistently losing on the battlefield. The myths of invincibility in places like Kharkiv, Donbass, and Volchansk have been completely shattered. Even within Russia, in Kursk, long columns of military vehicles and tanks on the highways were bombarded by Ukrainian drones. The Russian Black Sea Fleet has suffered continuous disasters, almost entirely destroyed by Ukrainian drones and anti-ship missiles. The UK-supplied Storm Shadow missile struck a critical blow, taking out the Black Sea Fleet's headquarters and commander. Russia's so-called advanced S-400 and S-300 air defense missiles were taken out by Ukraine's ATACMS missiles. The heavy losses of the Russian military are shocking. According to Ukrainian sources, over 1,400 Russian soldiers were killed in just one day, setting a new record for single-day casualties. Even Putin had to admit that Russian military casualties reached tens of thousands monthly. Such losses could be unbearable for any army. Faced with continuous battlefield setbacks, Putin cannot afford to lose. He has stated firmly that BRICS countries must take over the world and that China and Russia must unite to dominate globally. However, he seems to forget that Saddam Hussein's insistence on abandoning the dollar led to a catastrophic defeat. This time, Russia will be no exception. The question is Putin ready to face the consequences? If Russia is truly determined to fight NATO to the end, it must be prepared to be crushed. Reports indicate that NATO is building a series of land corridors, and if war breaks out, U.S. armored forces will drive straight to Moscow. Ukrainian morale is soaring as the battle progresses favorably. If Putin doesn't hurry to negotiate, Russia's situation will only worsen. Seeing the total collapse of the Kharkiv offensive, the leader of this warrior nation has changed his tune, quickly seeking negotiations. But the more anxious he becomes, the more Ukraine and the West ignore him. Biden gave Putin a heartfelt lesson, clarifying the definition of peace. Peace means ensuring that Russia can never occupy Ukraine and must lose this war like other historical aggressors. The implication is clear. If Russia wins, the world order will fall into chaos, so it must be defeated. It's evident that Russia has completely missed the best time for negotiations and the chance for a dignified withdrawal. Defeat seems to be the inevitable outcome for Russia. The West had previously prolonged the war to bleed Russia and its backer, the Chinese Communist Party. Now that its strategy has worked, with both nations severely weakened, the West is letting Ukraine hit Russian territory hard with Western weapons. The clear plan now is to push all the way to Moscow and completely crush Russia. The Western alliance is also intensively deploying missile defense systems to intercept any Russian nuclear strikes. Reports indicate that the U.S. military's most powerful interceptor missile, the Standard III, is now mounted on Fa-18 Super Hornet jets, becoming numerous airborne catchers. This means that even if Putin were to launch intercontinental missiles, U.S. jets could destroy them mid-air, nullifying Russia's nuclear deterrence. Even more daunting is that these interceptors can also serve as air-to-air missiles, targeting Russian aircraft. With the F-35 leading the way, the F-16s would dominate, rendering Russia's air defense network useless. The Germans are not holding back either. Not only have they ordered 35 F-35 jets, but they have also recently added 8 more. These advanced weapons will be stationed at air bases in Western Germany, ready to be equipped with B-61-12 nuclear bombs for combat. Although the future of the war is unpredictable, one thing is certain: the Biden administration is determined to see this through, even if it means fighting a nuclear war. Faced with such determination, Putin can only make grand statements, but in reality, he would avoid targeting NATO countries. Handling just Ukraine has already stretched him thin. In summary, while World War III has not erupted, the threat of nuclear war looms. For Putin, the wisest move would be to concede immediately. On June 7th in Paris, Biden met with Zelensky and apologized for the delay in military aid that had put Ukrainian forces at a disadvantage, demonstrating the U.S.'s commitment to supporting Ukraine. Biden assured that the U.S. would fully support Ukraine until the end. Zelensky's emotional response expressed gratitude to America and its people, hoping for continued support akin to America's role in saving Europe during World War II. This heartfelt exchange deeply moved the attending U.S. officials, resembling a classic moment from a Hollywood war movie. This deep friendship evidently also touched French President Macron. On the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings, he went to Omaha Beach to pay respect to the bravery and resilience of Ukraine and Zelensky. Accompanying his speech, the British Red Arrows and the French Patrouille de France acrobatic teams soared through the sky, putting on a stunning display to honor the heroes of the Normandy landings. The scene was nothing short of spectacular. The U.S. support for Ukraine is not just empty talk. The Department of Defense is in full swing, approving another $225 million in military aid, the sixth batch since the new aid bill took effect. Even more alarming is the construction of a new 155mm artillery shell factory in Texas, completed by General Dynamics under 10 months. This shell-making machine is like a scene straight out of Terminator, equipped with robots and CNC machines producing 30,000 shells per month. Macron is also showing great generosity, promising to send several Mirage 2000 fighter jets to Ukraine and to help train 4,500 soldiers. Speaking in French at the French Parliament, Zelensky thanked France. His words brought tears to the eyes of the lawmakers. Of course, U.S. support goes beyond the military. Politically, they are meticulously directing this Ukraine drama. On June 5th, Switzerland will host a peace summit, ostensibly initiated by Zelensky to discuss peace in Ukraine. But behind the scenes, the real director is the U.S. The goal is simple: to create a global political atmosphere of anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine, boosting Ukraine's morale while pressuring Russia. The scale of this summit is indeed impressive. In addition to over 100 countries, international organizations like the UN, NATO, and the EU will also send representatives. This setup is reminiscent of the Yalta Conference after World War II, seemingly laying out the post-war international order in advance. Even more striking is the report that a joint communiqué will be issued during the summit, demanding that Russia withdraw all troops by the end of July. Whether these plans come to fruition remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the U.S. military is planning a large-scale exercise codenamed Rim of the Pacific, running from late June to early August, with participation from 29 countries. Military experts suggest that Ukraine might use this window to launch its first major counteroffensive. If the counteroffensive falters, the U.S. will undoubtedly increase its aid and continue to build international momentum, cheering Ukraine on. This series of actions shows that the U.S. is determined to fight Russia to the end. By supporting Ukraine, they not only aim to weaken Putin, but also send a stern warning to China, showing that the West will not back down. In this game, the U.S. is serious about helping Ukraine eliminate Russian forces and gradually expand the battlefield until Russia is completely defeated, forced to pay reparations, and admit its mistakes. Given the current situation, any hope Putin had of negotiating is likely shattered. His actions are increasingly erratic. He frequently reshuffles his domestic team and visits Asian countries to prepare for the worst. On June 5th, at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Putin once again mentioned the possibility of peace talks during a meeting with international media leaders. Notably, this time he addressed international media and did not insist on the current borders as a condition, which is the biggest concession he can make. He even indicated that he doesn't rule out resuming cooperation with the US, UK, and France in the future. It seems he is backpedaling. However, Western countries don't seem convinced. Adding to the awkwardness, Putin mentioned receiving a letter from Biden. Insiders revealed that the letter made it clear that if Russia dared to use nuclear weapons, the US would destroy all Russian bases in Ukraine, pushing the Russian-Ukrainian border back to 1991. This threat, reportedly disclosed by the Polish defense minister, must have made Putin realize the danger of his position. The only option left for him is to withdraw his troops. Otherwise, even his regime might not survive. Ultimately, Putin's real intention might be to regain acceptance by the US, UK, and France. He hopes to make concessions on the Ukraine issue in exchange for the West easing economic restrictions, especially lifting blockades in the Baltic, Black, and Mediterranean seas. While this request is understandable, its likelihood is slim given the current circumstances. Objectively, this war has not only exposed Putin's strategic short-sightedness, but also revealed the Chinese Communist Party's hypocrisy. Attempts to achieve national revival through military expansion are doomed to fail. This profound lesson should be a wake-up call not only for the Kremlin but for leaders worldwide. The Russia-Ukraine war is a brutal mockery of justice and peace, but it will also mark the turning point for the end of autocracy and hegemony. The end of this war will herald a new wave of freedom and democracy, bringing peace back to the world. When reflecting on this war, we should remember both the separations and reunions during the conflict and the experiences of life in peacetime, as well as the power struggles and resilience of human nature. Eventually, Russia and Ukraine will recover, and people worldwide will work together for a future of freedom, democracy, and prosperity.